Hello, everybody. I'm a bit late to the party, but I need to talk about this because I talked about Simon House in terms of self-immigration, etc., etc., the Forge Media debate. So there's an OT debate and there's a Forge Media debate. Now, so obviously the three main parties is not as big as the OT one, obviously. So it's just basically the three main parties, and that is Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and Sinn Fein. Now, obviously, we talked about Simon House before. Now it's Mary Lou McDonough's home, obviously, the leader of Sinn Fein. Now, there was the usual crack from Sinn Féin, and the usual crack from really the mainstream politicians. They will promise you this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other. But Mary Lou McDonald, a lot of fake acts adds us to the question. In fairness, Virgin Media actually asked them some tough questions. Like Simon House himself too, when he was on it, was asked some tough questions by that journalist. In fairness, he was actually sweating a bit, and the same with Mary Lou McDonald, she actually was sweating a bit. So in fairness, they actually probably did some good journalism, Virgin Media. So in fairness, they did something for once. But yeah, Mary Lou McDonald, the one thing I find very interesting is particularly immigration. Now, as we know, a lot of Sinn Féin supporters at the moment, they feel very abandoned, particularly in working class areas in Dublin and across the country too. They feel very abandoned by Sinn Féin, and that's why they've lost a lot of support. And I think it goes without saying, I'm sure people would agree with that. I even know people in Cavan that support Sinn Féin were full of Sinn Féin supporters. And then when the immigration thing happened, where hundreds of people came from Timbuktu, etc., etc., a lot of them were like, particularly Sinn Féin were calling people far right if you raised any kind of a concern at all, even if you said we need a cap on the numbers coming in, etc., far right extremists, etc., etc. And that turned a lot of people off. And you've seen it yourself. The polls tell you yourself that's the way. And especially in the local and European elections, Sinn Féin didn't do as well as they thought they would be. Anyway, after that. I suppose beginning story. But I remember Lou McDonald was on the programme. She said about immigration, etc., etc. And particularly Sinn Féin is the party, just to add before I go any further, is said there was in working class areas they shouldn't be putting direct provision status in working class areas, and that's true. Again, it should be in areas that people there should be the communication, etc., etc. And if people want them, take for example in Donnybrook and big areas of Dublin, very wealthy areas, and Sinn Féin has suggested that. But the thing was, the journalist actually asked Mary Lou McDonald, where are you suggesting that we put these people? Do you suggest we put them in Ball's Bridge? Do we in the big beside the Fanabatric, you take for example in that area? Do we put them in that area, the rich parts, the 1%, the 2% of Irish society where the elite live, the TDs, etc., etc., senators, and all that? And Mary Lou McDonald couldn't answer whereabouts in the country the wealthy rich areas that have private GPs, private houses, big houses with huge lawns, etc., etc., multi-million euro houses. Yeah, and she couldn't say one place in the country where she could, and I think that tells you all you need to know, that are not very serious in terms of putting them in areas that are very rich, etc., etc., that could, the people could generally probably buy them all houses if they wanted to. But again, they're all shouted about refugees welcome, etc., etc. When you ask them about it, they won't put the money where their mouth is. But long story short, she couldn't say. She generally couldn't say where to put it, where to put them, and that tells you all you need to know in my books, and that's just my opinion. And again, she talked about a lot of housing and etc., etc. And obviously, they're very important too. But it's important, particularly, again, as I say, it's a big, huge crisis in this state. There's hundreds of people turning up every day of the week. But the other thing about the ways is the Sinn Féin policy. Not Mary Lou McDonald didn't really address this on the show, but what the ways about the European Union, etc., etc. People come from Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, take for example. Sinn Féin's proposing when you come from them countries on the work permit or as a resident from the European Union, you should be registered. And what I mean by that is, they take your details, etc., etc. So basically, like you're seeking asylum, basically, in other words. Now, obviously, being a member of the European Union allowed for the common travel area, there's such thing as common travel, where you don't need a visa, etc., etc. I can go off to Finland, take for example, in the morning and work for 3 months, and after that I would need a residency permit to stay in Finland. But you can go for 3 months as long as you have a passport, and obviously go in through the right means. You just don't turn on the boat, and you don't go through immigration, etc., etc. All things considered, but again, in the same, but majority of Polish people can come here and work for 3 months, and I can go over to Warsaw now in the morning and work for 3 months. That's what we signed on for when we joined the European Union, for the common travel area and the common trade area, and that's what the European Union should be about, not dictating policy, etc., etc. But long story short, I'm sure you would agree in that. So we'll be breaking our own treaty, I suppose, in terms of that. Inside now. But the other problem is they're completely ignoring the main elephant in the room is there's people come from Albania and from Georgia, from Algeria, from Nigeria, and they're not in the European Union. They're from outside the European Union. And they are coming in, etc., etc., tourist visas, etc., etc. They should be registered too. They should have to register the whole details, etc., etc., to have permission to stay in the country. And as we know, so many people came through the country without even a passport. And it's true. It's been said by the Dublin airport officials, it's been said by the government, that so many people came in without even a passport. We didn't even know who they were. It's been said by the mainstream. It's not me making it up. Again, look at it for yourself. It has been said. It has literally happened. And we have statements and stuff from people in the airport saying they've seen passports being flushed down the toilet. Take for example, even I don't like you fell over Ryanair, but he did say that his staff reported them that loads of people flushing them down the toilets, and it's happening. It is happening. But long story short, Sinn Féin are more worried about European Union than the outside of the European Union. I think they're trying to blend in the two together. So I do think we have the distinction there, particularly within the European Union, because we did sign up for it. Again, we did vote democratically to have it for a common travel area, etc., etc. And Irish people can go over to Poland for a few months. Say, for example, in Finland, we could all go for 3 months in Finland. That's European citizens. That's an Irish citizen. That's a European citizen of the European Union. And nobody has really an issue with in that, I'm sure, if that makes any sense. But it's the fact of the matter is people coming from other parts of the world are not in the European Union and are intending to stay forever, etc., etc. Usually these people only stay for a certain period of time and go home, etc., etc., to their home country, etc., etc. So I do think Sinn Féin needs to get real on this, because it's very stupid in my opinion. Now I do agree there's some of them that do stay over the time, and they shouldn't be doing that, Polish people, etc. Again, they should be if they're found deported, etc., etc. I think it goes without saying, but I do think our problems in the European Union in terms of immigration. People come from European countries, but it's outside, because again, if you look at the numbers, the majority are Georgian, Algerian, Nigerian, Albanian too is another thing. But the Albania is seeking to join the European Union, etc., etc. But huge issue there. But I do think they're trying to combine the issue. So that's what I think, in my opinion. So I might be wrong in saying that, but I do think Sinn Féin should probably look at the policy, and even if it was just everyone, I'd be happy enough for it. But at the same time, I do think they're trying to distort the facts a bit in that. In my own opinion, again, just looking at it from where I'm looking at it, it seems to be what I'm saying. But as I say, Mary Lou, just going back to the interview, just in the last few subject of it, she did raise a good few things about house, and she raised things about healthcare, many other things. I think even crime too was mentioned, but I think she mentioned about the college, again with the college fees, etc., etc., for students. Now I don't know if Sinn Féin's serious about it. I don't think Fine Gael is serious. I think they're just throwing it out there to see what kind of reaction people give, particularly college, because again, the majority of people who are voting for Sinn Féin, again, even back in my day, I used to be a huge Sinn Féin supporter when I was younger. I used to think they were the greatest party ever. But then again, when you're in Sinn Féin, and the majority of people would know, you look at the Aontu, etc., etc. The majority of people, I think everybody at one stage supported Sinn Féin, but then you kind of see what's behind what's behind the curtains, and then you kind of get it. But particularly one thing she said, there's nobody controlling Sinn Féin behind the curtains, in other words. Now, and I will agree, there's people behind the scenes probably in Sinn Féin that are pulling the strings a bit, in terms of what's been said and what's been done in the party, etc., etc. Because obviously back years ago, etc., etc. We all know about it, what happened years ago. But there probably is still that happening. But there is a culture in Sinn Féin that, as we see, it's about silence and you don't question the leadership, etc. So this is that kind of culture. When I was there too, we're not as an active member, but a huge supporter of them. One of probably the biggest supporters back in the day in Cavan. You wouldn't allowed to. You're only allowed to say what the policies were. You wouldn't allowed to criticise the policies in a way. That's the way I felt, and over a lot of stuff too. Like I could go on and on and on, but Sinn Féin's not the party that war when they were founded. Sinn Féin means ourselves, but it's everybody else but ourselves. To be totally honest, in terms of Sinn Féin and modern era, not back in the day. Back in the day, but even back 30 years ago, they meant something for this country. Not so much now. They've taken too much woke ideology and trying to spin this, etc., etc. And not to mention too, just on the last thing with immigration, etc. Mary Lou McDonald and Sinn Féin proposed that illegal immigrants to Ireland would get a special kind of grant, I suppose you would call it, but basically become Irish citizens, people that have broken the law to enter the state. And I don't agree with that whatsoever. Anybody that's broken the law to head to the state, regardless if they're doing good work, etc., should be deported. It's simple as that. It's the same if Irish person was over in the United States, even though they could be working at the health service in the United States, in New York, etc. If they went into the United States illegally, they have every right to send them home. Simple as that. And the same with any country. As I say, any Irish person caused trouble in any other country, send them home. Simple as that. Send them home, because they're broken, and again they're showing a bad side of the country by going over and causing trouble. Because again, at the end of the day, it's the same with everything. I went to Finland, etc., before during the summer. They could have told me straight at the gate, go home, we don't watch them. It's their country. You have no right to really say, I'm entitled to go in, etc., even though you could argue you spent loads of money, etc., going into the country. But at the end of the day, it's their country at the end of the day, and that's as simple as that. You respect the rules, etc., and as simple as that, you respect the law when you're in that country, regardless of what it is, even if it's just walking on the street, being polite to people, you're being decent, being a good person in their country. And obviously, if you break their trust, etc., in terms of any country, regardless if you're in Australia, wherever, you should be sent home, especially if you go in illegally. Thank you.